They called me an illegal nanny behind my back, like I couldn't understand English. But when their daughter stopped breathing in the middle of the night, and I was the only one who knew what to do, everything changed. I saved her life, and then I disappeared. No warning, no explanation, and when they finally found out who I really was, it was already too late. I remember the first time I walked into the Morrison house. It was early September, one of those bright, cold mornings where the air smells like wet grass and gasoline. The neighborhood was the kind you see in movies: wide streets, tall trees turning gold, houses with porches that look like they were designed for lemonade and family photos. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, backpack over my shoulder, smoothing down my jacket, trying to look professional, trying to look like I belonged. Mrs. Morrison opened the door before I could knock. She was blonde, thin, wearing yoga pants and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Behind her, the house smelled like vanilla, candles, and coffee. Everything was white: walls, furniture, countertops. It looked like a magazine. It looked cold. "You must be the nanny," she said. "Not my name, just the nanny." I smiled and nodded. "Yes, Mom, I'm here for Emma." She looked me up and down, quick but obvious. Then she stepped aside. "Come in, let me show you around." The tour was efficient. Kitchen, living room, Emma's room upstairs, the laundry, the guest bathroom I'd be using. She spoke fast, like she was checking boxes. I tried to take mental notes, but mostly I was just trying not to stare at how big everything was. In my apartment, you could stand in the center and touch 3 walls. Here, the hallway alone was bigger than my bedroom. Emma appeared halfway through the tour, 6 years old, brown hair in 2 braids, holding a stuffed elephant. She looked at me with wide, curious eyes. "Are you my new nanny?" I crouched down to her level. "I am. My name is Nina. What's your elephant's name?" She smiled. "Peanut." I smiled back. "That's a good name." Mrs. Morrison cleared her throat. "Emma, go play. Nina and I need to talk about schedules." The little girl nodded and ran off, clutching Peanut. Mrs. Morrison turned to me, arms crossed. "Let's go over expectations." The list was long. Wake up at 5:30. Make breakfast. Drive Emma to school by 7:45. Come back. Tidy up. Pick her up at 3. Help with homework. Make dinner. Bath time. Bedtime at 8. And somewhere in between, handle laundry, grocery runs, and whatever else came up. She didn't say clean the house, but she didn't have to. I could already see it in the way she glanced at the counters, the floors, the perfectly arranged throw pillows. "We'll pay you in cash," she added. "Every Friday. Does that work?" I nodded. "Yes, Mom." She pulled out an envelope, counted bills in front of me, twice, like she thought I might argue about the number. Then she handed it to me. "Great. Let's make this work." That first week I learned quickly. I learned that Mr. Morrison hid his wallet when I walked into a room. I learned that Mrs. Morrison introduced me as the help when her friends came over. I learned that they spoke freely in English around me, assuming I didn't understand. And I learned that Emma, sweet and trusting, was the only one in that house who treated me like a person. She'd sit with me while I folded laundry, telling me stories about school, about her friends, about Peanut's imaginary adventures. She'd draw me pictures, crayon portraits with big smiles and the words "I love Nina" scribbled at the top. She didn't care where I came from. She didn't care about papers or accents or status. She just cared that I was there. But her parents did. I heard them sometimes late at night when they thought I was asleep in the back room. Conversations that started casual and ended pointed. "She's good with Emma," Mrs. Morrison would say, "but we need to be careful. You know how people talk." Mr. Morrison would laugh. "Relax, she's not going anywhere. Where would she even go?" I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself it didn't matter, that this was temporary, that I just needed to save enough money, get through the immigration process, validate my credentials. That one day I wouldn't have to fold someone else's laundry while they debated whether I was trustworthy enough to be near their child. One afternoon, I was in the kitchen preparing snacks when Mrs. Morrison's sister came to visit. They sat at the island sipping wine while I sliced apples and arranged crackers on a plate. The sister leaned in, voice low but not low enough. "So, is she legal?" Mrs. Morrison shrugged. "I don't ask. She showed up through a referral. Does her job. That's all I care about." Her sister raised an eyebrow. "You're not worried?" Mrs. Morrison laughed softly. "Worried about what? It's not like we're paying her enough to report." I set the plate down gently, smiled, and walked away. My hands were shaking, but I didn't let them see. Thanksgiving came. The Morrisons hosted a big dinner. I spent the morning cooking: turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green beans, pumpkin pie. The house smelled warm and rich. Guests arrived in waves, filling the dining room with laughter and clinking glasses. I served, cleared plates, refilled drinks. No one said thank you. No one asked me to sit. When they finally finished, I ate alone in the kitchen. Cold turkey on a paper plate. Emma came in, dragging Peanut. "Nina, why aren't you eating with us?" I smiled. "I already ate, sweetheart." She frowned like she didn't believe me. Then she hugged my leg and went back to the dining room. Later, when I was washing dishes, I heard Mr. Morrison telling a story to his friends. Something about immigration, border security, building walls. Everyone laughed. I kept scrubbing, kept my head down, kept breathing. "Just temporary," I told myself. "Just until I can leave." Winter came fast. Emma got sick twice, and both times I was the one who stayed up with her, checking her fever, making soup, reading stories until she fell asleep. Mrs. Morrison thanked me once, distractedly, while scrolling through her phone. Mr. Morrison didn't say anything at all. One night, Emma woke up crying. I heard her through the baby monitor they insisted I keep on, even though she was 6 and perfectly capable of calling for help. I went upstairs, knocked softly, opened the door. She was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face. I had a bad dream. I sat beside her, smoothing her hair. "It's okay. It was just a dream." She leaned into me. "I dreamed you left and didn't come back." My chest tightened. "I'm not going anywhere," I whispered. But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. By December, I'd saved almost enough to move on. Not much, but enough to rent a room somewhere, maybe find work that didn't make me feel invisible. I started looking at options, quietly, during Emma's nap times. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. Then came that Thursday night. The night everything changed. The Morrisons had a dinner reservation downtown, some fancy place with a dress code and valet parking. Mrs. Morrison reminded me 3 times before they left. "Emma's already eaten. Just check on her before bed. Make sure she brushes her teeth. Standard stuff." I nodded. Of course. They left around 6:30, dressed like they were going to a gala. Emma and I played board games in the living room until 8, then I took her upstairs for bath time. She was giggly, splashing water everywhere, talking about a project at school. I listened, smiling, thinking about how much I'd miss her when I finally left. After her bath, I tucked her into bed. She hugged Peanut close. "Nina, will you always be my nanny?" I hesitated. "For now, yes." She smiled. "Good. I love you. My throat tightened. I love you too, sweetheart. I went downstairs, cleaned up the game pieces, started a load of laundry. The house was quiet in that heavy, late evening way. I was folding towels in the back room when I heard it. Not a cry, not a call, just a sound that didn't belong. A rasp, uneven, wrong. I dropped the towel and ran. Up the stairs, down the hallway, into Emma's room. The door was half open, her nightlight casting soft shadows. She was lying in bed, but something was off. Her breathing was harsh, labored. Her lips looked dark. I flipped on the light. Her face was pale. Her lips were turning blue. Her eyes were half open, unfocused. She wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. Just that terrible, shallow breathing. Emma! I rushed to her side, checked her airway. Her mouth was dry, tongue slightly swollen. I scanned the room, looking for clues. Then I saw it, on the nightstand, a granola bar wrapper, organic, peanut butter flavor. My stomach dropped. Emma was allergic to peanuts, severely allergic. Morrison had told me the first day. No peanuts, ever. She has an EpiPen in the kitchen, just in case. But we're very careful, except they weren't careful, because someone had left a peanut butter granola bar on her nightstand, and Emma, being 6 and trusting, had eaten it. She was going into anaphylactic shock. I didn't panic. I couldn't afford to. I ran downstairs, grabbed the EpiPen from the drawer I'd memorized on day 1, just in case. I ran back up, uncapped it, jabbed it into her thigh through her pajama pants. The click was sharp, immediate. I held her on her side, one hand on her back, the other dialing 911. My voice was steady, even though my heart was trying to break through my ribs. I need an ambulance. 6-year-old girl, anaphylactic shock. I administered an EpiPen. She's breathing, but not stable. The dispatcher stayed on the line. I stayed with Emma, talking to her in Spanish. Soft words she didn't understand but responded to anyway. Her breathing started to even out. Slightly, not enough. Come on, baby, stay with me. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Paramedics rushed in, took over. They asked questions. I answered everything. Allergy, peanut exposure, EpiPen administered. Time elapsed. They loaded her onto a stretcher, hooked her up to oxygen. One of them looked at me. You did good. She's stable now. I followed them to the ambulance. Can I come with her? They hesitated, exchanged a glance. Are you the mother? No, I'm her nanny. Another pause, then a nod. Get in. I sat beside Emma in the ambulance, holding her small hand. She was awake now, groggy but aware. Her eyes found mine. Nina, I'm here, sweetheart. You're okay. You scared me. I smiled through the tears I didn't realize were falling. You're okay now. At the hospital, they took her straight back. I stayed in the waiting room, pacing, praying in 2 languages. A nurse came out after 20 minutes. She's stable. We're keeping her for observation, but she's going to be fine. I sank into a chair, relief flooding through me like warm water. Then I heard them. Voices in the hallway, frantic, loud. The Morrisons had arrived. If you've been following this story and it's hitting close to home, leave the word invisible in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. You'll want to see how this unfolds. Mrs. Morrison burst through the doors first, eyes wide, mascara smudged. Where is she? Where's Emma? A nurse guided them back. I stayed in the waiting room, suddenly feeling out of place, like I'd done something wrong by being there at all. They came back out 30 minutes later. Emma was with them now in a wheelchair, looking tiny and tired, but okay. Mrs. Morrison was holding her hand. Mr. Morrison was on the phone, probably canceling reservations or making excuses. Neither of them looked at me. Finally, Mrs. Morrison turned. Her voice was flat. "Thank you for calling 911. We'll take it from here." That was it. No hug, no tears, no "you saved my daughter's life." Just a dismissal wrapped in politeness. We rode back to the house in silence. I sat in the back seat, staring out the window. Emma had fallen asleep, head against her mother's shoulder. And that's when I heard it. Mrs. Morrison, quiet but clear. Thank God she was there. Mr. Morrison, quieter. "Yeah, but now she's going to think she can ask for more money. Mrs. Morrison, we can't afford that. And did you see how the paramedics looked at her? Definitely not documented. Mr. Morrison, if something happens and they find out we hired her..." Mrs. Morrison, "I know. We'll have to handle this carefully." I closed my eyes, not because I was tired, because I finally understood I had just saved their daughter's life, and all they could think about was covering their own backs. When we got home, I helped carry Emma inside. I stayed until she was settled in bed, kissed her forehead, whispered good night. She mumbled something back, half asleep. Then I went downstairs to my room. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, listening to the house settle. Around 3 a.m, I stood up. I pulled my backpack out from under the bed. I packed my clothes, my documents tucked in a waterproof envelope, the photos I kept hidden, my phone charger, the few things that were actually mine. Then I sat at the small desk in the corner and wrote a letter. Not long, not emotional, just clear. "I saved your daughter's life tonight. You saved your reputations. We're even. Don't try to find me." I left it on the kitchen table, right next to the empty EpiPen case. Then I walked out the back door as the sun started to rise. I didn't look back. The first few days were the hardest. I stayed with a friend from church, someone who didn't ask too many questions. I spent hours on my phone, looking for work, looking for housing, looking for a way forward that didn't involve folding someone else's laundry while they debated my humanity. I didn't think about the Morrisons, or I tried not to. But at night, when everything was quiet, I thought about Emma. I wondered if she was asking for me, if she was scared, if she understood why I left. I told myself she'd be fine. Kids are resilient. But it didn't stop the ache. 2 weeks later, I found work at a community health clinic. It wasn't medical work, not officially, just intake, translation, admin. But it was something. And the people there, they saw me, not as help, not as temporary, just as someone trying to survive and maybe eventually thrive. I started taking English classes at night, not because I didn't already speak it, but because I wanted my accent to disappear. I wanted to walk into rooms and not have people assume things about me before I even opened my mouth. I was tired of being underestimated. One evening, about a month after I left, I was walking home from class when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. "Hello?" Silence. Then a small voice. "Nina?" My heart stopped. "Emma? Nina, where are you?" I sat down on the nearest bench, gripping the phone. "I can't tell you that, sweetheart. But why? I miss you. Mommy said you left because you didn't like us anymore." My eyes burned. That's not true. I loved taking care of you. "Then why did you go?" I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that her parents treated you like you were disposable? That saving her life wasn't enough to earn their respect? I had to go. I said finally, but it wasn't because of you. You didn't do anything wrong. I heard voices in the background. Emma, who are you talking to? Emma whispered quickly. I have to go. I love you, Nina. And the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, phone in my lap, people passing by on the sidewalk. I wanted to call back. I wanted to go back. But I didn't. Because I knew if I did, I'd end up right where I started, invisible, underpaid, undervalued. And I couldn't do that anymore, not even for Emma. Winter turned into spring. I kept working at the clinic. I kept studying. I started the process of getting my medical credentials validated. It was slow, expensive, frustrating, but I was moving forward. That's what mattered. Then, one day in April, I got a letter. Not an email, an actual letter in a thick envelope with a law firm's return address. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a packet of documents and a note typed on official letterhead. Dear Miss Name, we are writing on behalf of our client to inform you that we have taken the necessary steps to correct certain misunderstandings. Enclosed, please find copies of your medical degree, residency certificate, and translated credentials. These have been submitted to the appropriate licensing boards as part of an ongoing validation process. Additionally, a formal letter has been sent to the Morrison family clarifying your professional qualifications and background. You are under no obligation to respond. This is simply to ensure the record is clear. Respectfully, law firm name. I stared at the documents, my diploma, my residency records, everything I'd worked for, everything I'd had to put on hold to survive. And someone, some lawyer I didn't even know, had sent them to the Morrisons. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did both. 3 months later, I was sitting in a clinic exam room when my supervisor knocked. There's someone here to see you. I frowned. I'm not scheduled for walk-ins today, I know, but she's insisting, says it's personal. I wiped my hands on my scrubs and walked out to the waiting area. And there she was, Mrs. Morrison, standing in the middle of the room, looking smaller than I remembered, older, tired. She saw me and her eyes filled with tears. I didn't move, I just waited. She walked over slowly. I'm sorry, she said. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry for everything, for how we treated you, for what we said, for not seeing you. I didn't respond. Not yet, she continued. We got a letter from a lawyer about who you really are, about what you gave up to take care of Emma. She paused, wiping her eyes. You're a doctor, a real doctor, and we treated you like you were nothing. I looked at her, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just with the quiet knowledge that I didn't need her apology to know my worth. I know what I am, I said softly. I always did. She nodded, crying harder now. Emma asks about you every day. She draws pictures of you. She says you saved her life. I smiled, just a little. I did. Mrs. Morrison took a shaky breath. Is there any chance you'd consider coming back? We'd pay you properly. We'd treat you with respect. No, I said, not unkind, just firm. I'm where I belong now. She nodded slowly, understanding. Then, can I at least tell Emma that you're okay? That you didn't leave because of her? I softened. Yes. You can tell her that. Mrs. Morrison turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Emma wanted me to give you this. She handed it to me and walked out. I unfolded it carefully. It was a crayon drawing, me and Emma holding hands, Big smiles, hearts everywhere. At the top, in wobbly letters, Nina is a hero. I folded it back up and tucked it into my pocket. Then I went back to work. Because I had patients waiting, people who needed me, people who saw me. If you're still with me, thank you for listening. This part of my story was hard to tell, but it gets even more intense. Stay with me. The weeks after Mrs. Morrison's visit were strange. Not bad, just different. Like a chapter had closed, but the book wasn't finished yet. I kept working at the clinic. My credentials were slowly being processed. I was taking steps, real steps, toward practicing medicine again. Officially, legally, with my name on a badge that said doctor, not helper. But Emma's drawing stayed in my pocket. I'd take it out sometimes during lunch breaks, smooth the creases, trace the crayon lines with my finger. I wondered if she still remembered my voice, if she still asked for me at bedtime, if her parents had finally learned to check labels on granola bars. One Saturday morning, I was at the farmer's market buying vegetables when I heard a familiar voice. Nina! I turned around, and there she was, Emma, running toward me, braids flying, peanut tucked under one arm. Behind her, Mrs. Morrison was speed walking, trying to catch up, looking panicked. Emma crashed into me, hugging my legs. I missed you so much. I crouched down, smiling despite the lump in my throat. I missed you too, sweetheart. Did you get my drawing? I did. I keep it with me every day. Her face lit up. Really? Really? Mrs. Morrison reached us, breathless. I'm sorry. She saw you and just ran. I looked up at her. It's okay. Emma pulled back, studying my face seriously. Mommy says you're a real doctor, that you help sick people. I nodded. I do. She beamed. That's so cool. I want to be a doctor too. Just like you. Something in my chest broke open. Not sad, just full. You can be anything you want, I told her. Mrs. Morrison cleared her throat. We won't keep you. I just wanted to say again, I'm sorry for everything. I stood up. Thank you. Emma tugged on my hand. Can you come visit, please? Just once? I looked at Mrs. Morrison. She nodded quickly. You're welcome any time. No pressure. Just if you want. I hesitated. Then I looked back at Emma's hopeful face. Okay, I said, once. 2 weeks later, I went. It was a Sunday afternoon. The house looked the same, white, pristine, magazine perfect. But when the door opened, something felt different. Warmer, maybe. Mrs. Morrison greeted me with a genuine smile. Thank you for coming. Emma grabbed my hand and dragged me upstairs to her room. She showed me her new drawings, her school projects, her collection of stuffed animals that had apparently multiplied. She talked non-stop, the way kids do when they've stored up 1,000 things to say. I listened, smiling, feeling the weight I'd been carrying start to lift just a little. Downstairs, Mrs. Morrison made tea. We sat in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I used to eat alone on paper plates. She asked about my work, about my studies. She didn't ask about immigration status or documentation. She just asked about me, the person. It was strange and kind of nice. Before I left, she handed me an envelope. I tried to refuse. This isn't about money, I said. I know, she replied. But it's what we should have paid you from the start, plus interest. Please take it. I did, not because I needed her money, but because accepting it meant she finally understood the value of what I'd given. Emma hugged me at the door. I love you, Nina. I love you too, sweetheart. Promise you'll come back? I smiled. Maybe. Driving home, I thought about how strange life is. How you can go from invisible to essential in a single moment. How people can change, sometimes, if they're forced to see what they've been avoiding. How saving a life doesn't always mean the person you saved will save you back. Sometimes you have to save yourself. I kept visiting Emma every few weeks, not as a nanny, as a friend. Someone she could look up to, someone who proved that where you come from doesn't define where you end up. Mrs. Morrison and I weren't close, but we were cordial, respectful. It was enough. By summer, my credentials came through, officially. I could practice medicine again. I got a position at a pediatric clinic that served underserved communities, families who couldn't afford insurance, kids who needed someone who understood what it felt like to be overlooked. I was home. Finally. One evening, after a long shift, I sat in my small apartment and looked around. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No one could tell me to leave. No one could make me feel small. I thought about the girl who walked into the Morrison house that first day, desperate and scared and willing to accept scraps. I thought about the woman who walked out in the dark, carrying nothing but her dignity. And I realized they were the same person. I just finally knew my worth. The last time I saw Emma, she was 7.5. We met at a park. She ran around, climbed on everything, laughed so loud people turned to look. I sat on a bench with Mrs. Morrison, watching. "She's doing well," Mrs. Morrison said. "Thanks to you." I shook my head. "Thanks to her. She's strong." Mrs. Morrison looked at me. "I'll never forgive myself for how we treated you." "You don't have to," I said gently. "Just treat the next person better." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will, I promise." Emma ran over, out of breath. "Nina, watch this." She did a cartwheel, messy and joyful. I clapped. "Perfect." She grinned and ran off again. Mrs. Morrison stood up. "We should go." "Thank you for today." I smiled. "Any time." As they walked away, Emma turned back and waved. I waved back, and I knew, deep down, that I'd done what I came to do, not just save her life that night, but show her that people like me, people she might not see, people she might overlook, we matter. We're strong, we're capable, we're human, and that lesson, I hope, would stay with her forever. So, did I do the right thing by leaving? By disappearing without explanation and rebuilding my life on my own terms? Or should I have stayed and fought for respect in a place that never saw me? I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Because the next story I'm going to share is about a moment when silence became my greatest power. You won't want to miss it.